She didn't mean for the words to cut him, not the way they did, but the moment she said it and the crowd laughed, something in his eyes changed. He was a janitor, invisible, easy to ignore, easy to joke about. So when she pointed to the helicopter and said, "Fly this, and I'll marry you," it was supposed to be a joke, a loud one, a social one, a joke everyone else understood except him. Crowd laughter echoes. Caleb looks up slowly. He didn't smile. He didn't flinch. He just stepped forward, wiped his hands on his work shirt, and said quietly, "Are you sure?" No one on that rooftop had any idea what they were about to witness. And before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're watching from right now. Say your city, your country, your time. We have people here from everywhere, and I want to see you all. And if stories about love, power, and unexpected destiny resonate with you, subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Because this one doesn't go where you think it will. The rooftop glowed under strings of warm lights, swaying gently in the coastal breeze. Music pulsed low and rhythmic, the kind meant more for atmosphere than dancing. The Miami skyline stretched in every direction, glittering like a field of stars brought down to earth. Guests in silver, gold, and deep velvet gowns moved between candlelit tables, laughing, sipping champagne, posing for photos that would look effortless online later. Lena Whitmore stood near the glass railing, her dress a pale rose that caught the light every time she shifted. She was smiling, but it was the kind of smile that fit the moment more than her mood. Everyone expected it from her, the daughter of wealth, the girl raised in penthouses instead of playgrounds, the one who always looked like she belonged wherever the air was expensive. Below the party lights, Caleb moved quietly with a cleaning cart, emptying glasses, wiping spilled liquor from glossy surfaces, replacing napkins before anyone noticed they were gone. He worked with the focus of someone who did not need direction. He knew this place, every step of it, every crack in the floor, every corner where sound collected. Most didn't look at him. Some looked through him. But he saw everything. He paused once near the edge of the rooftop, his eyes tracing the clouds above the ocean, where a helicopter sat parked like it had been waiting for someone bold enough to use it. The rotors glimmered faintly under the lights. He watched it the way some people look at things they once loved and aren't sure they should touch again. Across the space, Lena's best friend leaned in to whisper something sharp, something with teeth. Lena laughed. Not because it was funny, because that's what was expected. The kind of laugh that keeps a world running smoothly. The music shifted, glasses clinked. A photographer asked Lena to angle her chin a little higher. She did. Then her eyes drifted back to Caleb. There was nothing striking about him at first glance. No expensive suit, no polished shoes, just a quiet steadiness in the way he carried himself, like he belonged more on the ground than among rooftop glitter and staged laughter. But there was a calm confidence to the way he stood, a stillness that didn't bend toward approval. No one else noticed it, but she did. A guest bumped into him, spilling wine down his shirt. Not a word of apology, just a wrinkle of disgust, as though the spill was Caleb's fault for existing in the wrong place. Caleb only nodded and began to blot the stain, slow and methodical, shoulders relaxed. But Lena felt the moment lodge somewhere in her chest. Something about the imbalance, the quiet humiliation, the way he took it without shrinking. She turned away before anyone saw her expression shift. A waiter announced that the cake was being brought out. Someone raised a toast that sounded performative, even as it echoed across the rooftop. Laughter rose again, loud and bright. But the air had a slight crackle now, like something unseen had just shifted its weight. The cake had been cut, the sparklers had fizzled out, and the rooftop settled into the slow, drifting rhythm of late-night conversations. The kind where laughter gets looser and words start landing heavier than they should. Lena found herself surrounded, friends, admirers, people who knew her last name better than they knew her voice, a circle of shining glasses and sharp smiles. Someone noticed Caleb again, wiping down the railing, quiet and steady. "He's here every night," one of the guests said. "Like furniture with feelings." Another laughed, too loud. "That one, please. He wouldn't even know which end of a helicopter to touch." Lena didn't laugh at first, but the eyes turned to her, waiting. Expectation is louder than truth. So she smiled, light and careless. "You'd be surprised," she said. "Maybe he has hidden talents." Her friend nudged her arm. "Oh, really? What, he's secretly a pilot? A king in disguise? Come on, Lena." Someone else chimed in, wine-warm and bold. "If he can fly that helicopter," they pointed across the rooftop, "I'll give him my watch. Hell, I'll give him my car." Lena's laugh finally came, soft and easy. "Fly the helicopter and I'll marry you," she said. Just a joke, just a line tossed into the air like confetti. More laughter followed, too loud, too bright. It rippled across the rooftop like a spark thrown onto dry leaves. Caleb stopped wiping the railing. Slowly, he turned, not angry, not embarrassed, just still. He looked at Lena like he was seeing her for the first time, not the dress, not the hair, not the practiced smile. Her. The laughter around them dimmed, not because anyone stopped, but because the silence between them started to feel louder. He didn't break eye contact when he spoke. His voice was calm, low, steady. "Are you sure?" he asked. The rooftop stilled. Lena felt something inside her chest shift, a small, quiet click, like a lock turning. Around her, the smiles faltered, the laughter thinned. People glanced between them, trying to read what was happening. She could have backed out, could have laughed again and waved it away, but pride is a sharp, controlling thing, especially when people are watching. She lifted her chin and nodded. Everyone leaned forward at once, drawn toward the moment like moths to flame. Caleb didn't move quickly. He didn't rush. He set down the cleaning cloth, rolled his sleeves slow and neat, and began walking toward the helicopter. Someone whispered, "No, no way." Lena's pulse kicked hard in her throat. The night had shifted, and there was no taking the words back now. The crowd gathered toward the landing pad, heels clicking, dress shoes scuffing the rooftop tiles. The music faded into the background, forgotten. Phones came out. Screens glowed. Everyone wanted proof of the moment when the joke became something else entirely. The helicopter sat waiting, sleek and polished, its dark windows reflecting the lights of the city. The scent of salt air mixed with warm engine metal, the faint smell of aviation fuel drifting on the breeze. Caleb stopped beside it. He didn't look nervous. He didn't look excited, just present. He reached up and rested his hand on the side of the aircraft, the way someone might greet an old friend. His fingers moved with familiarity, tracing the edge of the door handle, the latch, the hinge, testing them, remembering them. Someone in the crowd whispered, "He's bluffing. He has to be." Another shook their head. Uncertainty had already settled in. Lena stood back, arms slightly crossed, though she wasn't sure if it was confidence or something trying to hold her together. Pride had brought her here, but something else, unfamiliar and unsettling, kept her silent. Caleb opened the cockpit door. The hinges didn't squeal. He'd maintained them himself. He stepped inside and began checking controls. Not showy, not dramatic, methodical. Switches, fuel levels, rotor clearance, foot pedals, instrument panel. His hands moved with the quiet memory of someone who had done this more times than he could count. Guests who had been laughing minutes ago grew still. Finally, he looked up, not at the crowd, at Lena. There was no challenge in his eyes, no smugness, no heat, just a question she couldn't read. "Coming?" he asked. The rooftop seemed to tilt beneath her feet for a moment. She walked forward, her steps slow, measured, uncertain. Someone tried to grab her arm, whispering, "Lena, don't. You don't know him." She pulled away gently. The cockpit felt smaller than she expected, intimate in a way that made the air feel thick. Caleb helped her settle into the seat, fastening her harness with careful, respectful distance. No touch lingered. No moment implied anything. He closed her door. His stepped into his side. The crowd watched from behind the safety barrier, hands pressed to mouths, breaths held. The engine turned. A low rumble vibrated through the ground. The rooftop lights flickered against the rising blades. Wind began to push outward, lifting hair, dresses, napkins, anything not held tight. Someone yelled something. No one heard it. Lena's heartbeat matched the growing thrum. Fast, loud, unmistakable. The helicopter lifted, slow at first, then higher. Feet left the ground. The rooftop fell away. The city opened beneath them, vast, glowing, alive. No one was laughing now. Lena kept her eyes on Caleb. His expression didn't change. He was home. The city spread beneath them like a field of stars poured across black glass. Miami glowed, neon, gold and ocean-deep blue, stretching from the shoreline to the horizon. The helicopter cut through the night air smoothly, no sudden tilt, no hesitation. Every movement was controlled, balanced, steady. Lena's breath caught in her chest. She had flown before. Luxury tours, corporate shuttles, private pilots who treated flying like a performance. But this was different. Caleb flew like the sky was familiar, like he understood its weight and silence, like he belonged to it. The wind pressed against the glass. The soft hum of the engine mixed with the rhythmic thump of the rotor blades. For a moment, it felt like the world below had quieted, like everything noisy and complicated stayed down on the rooftop. Lena looked at him. He didn't grip the controls tightly. His hands rested with certainty, the way a musician touches keys they've known since childhood. His eyes didn't dart around nervously. He watched the horizon, calm and focused, as though nothing in this moment surprised him. She realized he hadn't hesitated once. Not when she challenged him. Not when the crowd stared. Not when they lifted off. It was everyone else who had been surprised. Caleb adjusted altitude, guiding them over Biscayne Bay. The water below shimmered with reflections of yachts and harbor lights, glittering like scattered coins. The helicopter dipped lower, the ocean breeze brushing against the windows. Lena swallowed. "You've done this before." Her voice sounded smaller than she meant it to. He didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. Everything about him already said it. Finally, he spoke, not looking at her, not trying to impress her, just stating it. Yes. The simplicity of the word held weight, history, things unspoken. Lena's pulse tightened. The rooftop scene replayed in her mind, the laughter, the teasing, the arrogance of the moment. Her own part in it. She felt it now, the sting of shame beneath her ribs. But Caleb didn't look at her with resentment. No judgment, no triumph, only steadiness. The kind of steadiness that made it impossible to pretend anymore. They circled past the shoreline where waves rolled gently against the dark sand. The world was quiet up here, no cameras, no eyes, no roles to play. Lena turned her gaze forward again. "What are you?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Caleb didn't smile, but his eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. "Just someone who used to fly," he said. The answer felt like a door only opened an inch. The rest of the story stayed behind it. The helicopter began its slow return toward the city. Lights grew brighter. The rooftop came back into view. The crowd waiting, silent now. The landing was smooth, flawless. Barely a tremor beneath the skids. The rotors slowed. The world returned. But something between them had changed. Lena just didn't know what to call it yet. When the helicopter touched down, the rooftop was no longer loud. The music was still playing somewhere, but no one was listening to it. The laughter had faded. The glow of celebration had dimmed into something sharper, quieter, watchful. Everyone stood gathered near the safety barrier, waiting to see what the moment meant. The cockpit remained still for a long breath. Then another. Caleb powered down the engine. The rotors slowed from thunder to whisper. The night air settled. He stepped out first, opening Lena's door for her. No gesture of ownership, no dramatics, just quiet courtesy. Lena climbed down carefully, heels meeting rooftop tile with a soft click. The eyes on her were different now, less amused, more uncertain. Her own pulse hadn't slowed yet. She could still feel the movement of the sky beneath her ribs. Caleb walked back to his cleaning cart. No words, no glance backward. Just the simple return to work, as if nothing extraordinary had just happened. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Wait, that was real?" Someone else said, "He flew like," but didn't finish the sentence. Lena tried to speak, but her voice caught before the sound formed. The edge of embarrassment burned beneath her skin, but it wasn't about the joke anymore. It was about what the flight had revealed, not about him, about her. A man in a tailored suit stepped forward, grinning to cover his disbelief. "Well," he said, clapping his hands once, too loudly, "looks like we underestimated the janitor." Caleb did not acknowledge him. He picked up a discarded champagne flute and began wiping the table beside it. Slow, methodical, unbothered. Lena watched him, and the realization pressed hard and cold. He didn't need the moment. He didn't need the approval. He didn't need them. He had already lived a life none of them understood. Lena felt the world tilt in a way she hadn't expected, because power had shifted, invisibly but completely. The man everyone overlooked had risen into the sky and returned unchanged. She exhaled softly. Then, without announcing it, without explaining herself to anyone, she walked away from the circle of guests and crossed the rooftop toward him. Her heels were quiet now. No audience followed. No cameras lifted. Caleb didn't look up when she reached him. She spoke first, her voice low. "I shouldn't have said that," she said. A pause. A breath. "I'm sorry." Caleb rested the glass on the cart and finally raised his eyes to hers. There was no anger there, no triumph, no satisfaction, only clarity. "You didn't know me," he said. It was not forgiveness. It was simply truth. Lena nodded once. "No," she said, "I didn't." The wind moved across the rooftop again. Something unspoken passed between them. Not romance, not apology, not redemption, just recognition. Lena returned to her guests. The party continued. The lights sparkled. The music rose again. But nothing felt the same, because now she saw him. And once you see someone clearly, you cannot return to blindness. The next morning, the heliport was quiet. The party lights were gone. The rooftop was empty except for the soft hum of early maintenance. The ocean breeze carried the faint scent of salt and jet fuel, settling in the stillness before the city woke. Lena told herself she came back because she forgot her sunglasses. It wasn't true. She walked through the wide glass doors, past reception, past the lounge, past the polished floors and clean metallic walls that suddenly felt unfamiliar. She didn't know where she was going, only that her feet were taking her there. Caleb's locker was at the end of the maintenance corridor. She wouldn't have noticed it if the door hadn't been slightly open. Not wide, just enough to reveal something not meant to be seen. Inside, neatly folded uniforms, a pair of worn boots, a metal canteen, nothing surprising. But then, a triangularly folded American flag, edges crisp, the cloth heavy with meaning, a photograph tucked beneath it, 6 men standing beside a military helicopter, dust in the air, desert sky behind them. Their smiles were tired, real. Caleb was in the middle, his arm thrown around the shoulder of someone just slightly taller, someone who looked like a brother. Below the photograph, a medal, not displayed, not polished, just resting there. And beside it, a name patch. Rios, Air Corps Special Rescue. Lena's breath tightened. Not civilian flight training, not hobby, not coincidence. He flew helicopters in places where landing meant choosing between life and death. She reached out, barely touching the patch with her fingertips. The air shifted behind her. Caleb stood there, not angry, not defensive, just still. Lena stepped back, her heartbeat thudding too loudly in the quiet corridor. "I didn't mean to—" Her voice caught. He closed the locker gently. No slam, no panic, just quiet finality. "It's just a job now," he said, but the words were too small for the weight behind them. Lena shook her head, barely. "That wasn't just a job," she said. A long silence stretched between them. Caleb's voice was soft when he answered. "It was once." Nothing more, no story, no explanation, no invitation to ask. The conversation could have ended there, but Lena didn't leave. Not yet. She held his gaze a moment longer, not searching, not demanding, just trying to see him. Then she nodded, quiet and sincere, and walked away. Caleb watched her go, the corridor emptying with her footsteps. Only then did he allow his eyes to close, just for a moment. The break room smelled like old coffee and lemon scent cleaner, the kind of place people pass through instead of staying in. Fluorescent lights hummed faintly overhead. Morning sunlight filtered through the single high window, soft but distant. Caleb sat at the small metal table, hands wrapped loosely around a plain white coffee mug. He wasn't drinking it, just holding it, as though the warmth grounded him. The door opened. Lena stepped inside. He wasn't dressed for an event today. No evening gown, no polished hair, just jeans, a pale gray sweater, and a ponytail that looked like she hadn't checked it twice. She looked more real this way. She stopped just inside the doorway, unsure if she was intruding. Caleb didn't turn his head, but he spoke, quiet and unbothered. "There's coffee if you want some." The simple courtesy made the room feel smaller somehow. Lena poured herself a cup, though her hands were unsteady enough that the liquid trembled near the rim. She sat across from him. The silence was not uncomfortable, but it was full. Lena stared at her mug for a long moment before speaking. "I saw the things in your locker," she said. Caleb didn't answer. She continued anyway. "I know it was personal. I shouldn't have looked." Then Caleb set the mug down. "You didn't come to apologize for that," he said. Lena lifted her eyes to his, no defensiveness, no pretense, just truth. "No," she said. "I came because I didn't understand you, and now I realize that I don't know anything at all." He studied her face for a moment, not to scrutinize, to see. "You don't have to," he said. The words were simple, but they were not a dismissal. Lena leaned back slightly, exhaling slow. "It's strange," she said. "Everyone here knows my name. Everyone thinks they know who I am, but no one really sees anything. Not really." Caleb didn't interrupt. He didn't fill the silence. He let it breathe. "I say things without thinking," she continued. "I act like everything is light and effortless, like nothing touches me. I don't know if I even know how to stop." Her voice softened. "But last night when you flew, you weren't trying to prove anything." Caleb looked down at his hands. "I stopped trying a long time ago." There was a heaviness in the words, not regret. Something older. Lena swallowed. What happened? This time Caleb didn't look away, but the silence he gave her was a wall, not a rejection, a boundary. Lena nodded, accepting it. "No more questions," she said quietly. Caleb's expression shifted, almost, but not quite, a smile. She stood to leave, the moment balanced on a careful thread. At the door, he spoke. "Why did you really come here today?" Lena turned. Her voice was steady, clear. "To know you," she said. "Not just the part I saw last night. The rest of you. The part you keep quiet." Caleb didn't move, but something in the room did. Something small. Something beginning. Lena left first. Caleb remained seated at the metal table, staring at the steam rising from the mug. But this time, He drank the coffee. The evening of the charity gala arrived with warm coastal air drifting through downtown Miami. The event was held in a restored waterfront museum. Tall glass walls, marble floors, soft golden lighting that reflected off the water outside. Music floated from a live quartet, smooth and sophisticated. Lena arrived early. Her dress was a deep navy, simple but elegant. No glitter, no distraction. For once, she didn't care about being photographed. She scanned the lobby, her pulse quiet but steady. She didn't know if he would come. She had asked, not demanded, not begged, just asked. The doors opened. Caleb stepped in. He wore a black button-down shirt, sleeves rolled once at the wrist, and clean dark slacks. Nothing expensive, nothing meant to stand out. But the room shifted anyway, not because of what he wore, but because of how he carried himself. He met Lena's eyes. She smiled, small, genuine. He nodded once, a silent return. They walked side by side into the ballroom. No one announced them, but heads turned anyway. Conversations paused, not because the guests recognized Caleb, but because they recognized Lena with someone who was not part of their world, not polished, not wealthy, not curated, someone real. A woman with diamonds around her neck leaned toward her husband. "Is he security?" she whispered. Her husband shook his head. "No, he's the janitor." The words slipped through the room faster than the music could cover them. Lena heard. Caleb likely did too. Neither reacted. They moved toward a table set near a tall window overlooking the water. Lena handed him a glass of sparkling water from the passing tray. He accepted it with quiet thanks. Their conversation was simple, unforced, no pretenses. For a while, it was almost easy. Then, a man across the room turned, older, graying hair, posture sharp from years of command. His uniform was military formal, pressed, decorated, unmistakable. His eyes landed on Caleb. Everything stilled. He crossed the room with the certainty of someone who has walked into fire before. Guests stepped aside without realizing why. He stopped in front of Caleb. "Captain Rios," he said. The title hit the air like glass shattering in slow motion. Lena's breath froze. Caleb didn't respond immediately. His jaw tightened the faintest bit. "Not anymore," he said quietly. The man's eyes held something complicated. Respect, sadness, memory. "You don't stop being who you are," he said. The room around them softened into background blur. Lena looked between them. Captain, rescue team, a man who once lived in the sky by necessity, not thrill. Caleb stepped back slightly, ending the moment without argument. "I appreciate you saying that," he replied, voice steady. "But that life is gone." The man nodded once, deeply, with the weight of someone who understood loss without needing details. "If you ever want to talk," he said, and then he stepped away. No audience commentary, no applause, no gossip. Just the quiet, heavy truth of recognition between two men carrying the same ghost. Lena didn't speak. Caleb didn't look at her. They stood together in the soft light, the entire night shifting shape around them. The world had just revealed that he was more than she could have imagined, but it also revealed something else. He had walked away from that world for a reason, and reasons like that are never small. The gala continued as though nothing had changed, but the air around Lena and Caleb felt different now, softer in places, sharper in others. People returned to their conversations, but their glances lingered like fingerprints. Caleb stood near the tall window overlooking the water, the reflection of city lights flickering across his face. Lena remained beside him, close but not touching. Neither spoke. The silence was not awkward. It was heavy, meaningful. A waiter passed. Caleb shook his head. Lena took a sip of water just to do something with her hands. Then another figure approached, this one younger, well-dressed. confident in the way people are when they've never had to question whether they were welcome in a room. He didn't smile. He didn't hesitate. He spoke Caleb's name like a blade. Rios. Caleb's shoulders stiffened, barely noticeable but real. Lena recognized the man. Evan Gray, her father's godson, a family favorite. Raised in the same room she was, groomed for the same circles, smoothed into charm by money and expectation. Evan's attention flicked to Lena, then back to Caleb. "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." Caleb's jaw worked once, the muscle beside it tightening. "I could say the same," he replied. The words were polite, but they were not friendly. Evan laughed under his breath, the kind that carried no amusement. "Still hiding, I see." Caleb didn't respond. He didn't have to. The truth was already in the man's tone. Lena stepped slightly forward, not aggressively, but enough to stand beside Caleb rather than behind him. "You know each other," she said. Evan's gaze lingered on her, assessing. "We've crossed paths," he answered. "In another life." Caleb finally met his eyes. "It was long before this one," he said. Something unspoken passed between them, something resentful, something unfinished. Evan smoothed his suit jacket with one hand. "Well," he said, voice light but edged, "I suppose everyone gets tired of being a hero eventually." Lena's heartbeat quickened. Caleb's expression didn't change, but his silence was louder than a shout. Evan leaned in slightly, not enough for anyone else to notice, but close enough that his words landed where only Caleb could hear them. "You weren't supposed to walk away." Caleb's lips parted, but the reply never came, because Lena stepped forward first. Her voice was calm, clear, direct. "Enough." Evan blinked, surprised for the first time all night. "What are you doing?" he asked her quietly. Lena didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Having a conversation," she said, "not a performance." Evan studied her, confusion flickering into irritation. Then he smiled, the kind of smile people wear when they think they know something you don't. He tapped the table once with his fingertips. "Your father will want to know about this," he said softly. Caleb didn't flinch. Lena didn't look away. Evan walked off, swallowed by the crowd. The silence that followed was deeper than before. Lena finally turned to Caleb, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happened between you two?" Caleb didn't answer, not because he refused, but because there are some stories that require the right moment to be told. He stepped away from the window and said quietly, "Come with me." Lena followed. No hesitation this time. They stepped out through a side exit of the museum into the open night air. The harbor stretched ahead, calm and dark, the moon laying a faint silver path across the water. Boats swayed gently, their ropes creaking against the docks. The city lights behind them felt distant now, softened by the quiet. Caleb walked toward the far end of the pier, where the crowd noise couldn't reach. Lena followed, the rhythm of her heels steady on the wooden boards. Neither spoke. The silence felt necessary. At the very end of the dock, Caleb stopped. He leaned his hands on the railing, staring out across the water. The ocean breeze tugged at his shirt sleeves. His voice, when it came, was low but steady. "We were stationed in the Chisos Range, high altitude, cold, unpredictable, a rescue unit. We flew into places where maps mean nothing and weather tries to kill you every chance it gets." Lena stood beside him. She didn't interrupt. "There was a call, a hiking group. A storm came in fast. Visibility went down to almost nothing. We found them on a ridge that was already giving way." His jaw tightened. "We could only take one at a time. No choice, not physics, not skill, just reality." The wind moved across the water, carrying the heaviness of his words. "I pulled the younger one up first. He was barely conscious, hypothermic. I thought he wouldn't make another 10 minutes. I had to take him." A pause. "By the time we came back, the ridge had collapsed. The other man was gone." Lena's breath hitched, not from shock, from understanding. Caleb didn't look at her. The man I couldn't save was someone's brother, someone's son, someone important to people who needed him. He exhaled slowly, the sound barely there. So they needed someone to blame. Lena swallowed hard. He continued. Evan was there, not on the ground, but afterward. He watched the fallout, the anger, the press, the questions, the inquiries, a pause. He believed I should have saved the other man. Lena shook her head barely. That wasn't your fault. Caleb's eyes were on the water. That doesn't matter, he said. Someone was lost, and someone was saved, and I chose which one. His voice softened. You don't walk away from something like that untouched. The waves broke softly below them. For a long moment, neither moved. Then Lena spoke, very quietly. The man you saved, who was he? Caleb finally turned to her. His expression carried something old, something scarred, but not broken. He was your father's partner's son. The world seemed to tilt, not sharply, but slowly, like something long hidden aligning into place. Lena's hand pressed lightly against her own chest, not from pain, just to keep herself present. So, all this time, she whispered. Caleb nodded once. Our lives were connected before we ever met. Silence, not empty, full. Lena stepped closer, not touching him, just near enough that the air shifted between them. You saved someone, she said, and you lost someone. Both truths can exist. Caleb's eyes softened in a way they hadn't before. Not forgiveness, not healing, just openness. The beginning of something neither of them could name yet. The night around them held the moment gently. The ocean, the quiet, the space where two lives began to turn toward each other. The ride back from the harbor was quiet, not tense, not awkward. Just quiet in the way people are when their world has shifted and they're still learning how to stand in it. Lena didn't ask more questions. Caleb didn't offer more answers. They didn't need to. The museum was mostly empty now, guests trickling out into black cars and ride shares. The night softened by the distant hum of the city. Lena and Caleb stepped into the back corridor, away from the glittering lobby. The hallway was lined with framed photographs, founders, benefactors, men in expensive suits whose names were engraved on marble plaques. One photo caught Caleb's eye. Lena noticed. It was her father and his business partner, smiling, shaking hands, the harbor behind them. A newspaper clipping beneath it read, Whitmore Hale Maritime Expansion. Announced. Lena stared at the photograph. The memory of Caleb's words replayed slowly in her mind. The man I couldn't save was your father's partner's son. She looked at the plaque again. Whitmore, Hale. The name that had been spoken her entire life. Investors, contracts, boardrooms, family dinners she wasn't allowed to be bored at, and yet no one had ever said the son's name. No one had told her the story behind the silence. Her breath caught, a soft, barely audible thing, but Caleb heard it. He didn't look at her. He didn't touch her. He just spoke. He was young, Caleb said. Not reckless, not stupid. Just full of the kind of hope people have before life teaches them how sharp the world can be. Lena's eyes blurred, not with tears, but with understanding. Her father had never hated the pilot. He had hated loss, the kind of loss that leaves a room permanently quieter. She turned to Caleb, her voice low. My father doesn't talk about any of this. Caleb nodded. Some grief gets swallowed because speaking it would break something that's still holding someone together. Lena's chest tightened, not from pain, but from the ache of something familiar. She realized suddenly that the distance between them was smaller than she thought. Not in space, in understanding. Footsteps approached behind them. They turned. Evan. His expression was unreadable, but his gaze went straight to the photo. You didn't tell her, Evan said. Caleb didn't respond. You let her figure it out, Evan continued. Of course you did. Lena stepped forward before Caleb could. "Stop," she said. Not loud, just firm. Evan looked at her, something flickering, surprise, confusion, something like disappointment. "You don't know what he walked away from," Evan said. "You don't know who had to live with the consequences." Lena didn't blink. "And you don't know what he carries every day." The corridor was quiet enough to hear the distant echo of closing doors. Evan exhaled once, slow, like someone recalculating his understanding of the room. "You really don't see it yet," he said softly. Lena's jaw set, not defiant, but steady. "See what?" Evan's eyes shifted, just once, to Caleb. The reason he left wasn't guilt alone. Caleb's breath stilled. Evan continued. "He left because someone told him to disappear, someone who needed the story buried." The air in the hallway tightened. Not with anger, with truth approaching, slow, certain, unavoidable. Lena's heartbeat began to hammer, and Caleb didn't say a word. The hallway felt colder now, not because of the air, because something in the truth had shifted shape. Lena's voice was quiet when she spoke. "Who told him to disappear?" Evan didn't answer right away. He didn't have to. The silence filled the space long before the name left his mouth. "Your father." The words didn't strike like thunder. They landed softly. Worse that way. Lena stood very still. Caleb's gaze dropped to the floor, not ashamed, not crumbling, just tired in a way that didn't belong to the present moment. Evan continued, his tone level, controlled. "After the investigation, the press wanted someone to take responsibility. Investors wanted stability. The board wanted silence. A clean narrative." He paused. "Your father told Caleb that leaving was the only way to keep the company stable, to keep families like yours from falling apart." Lena blinked once. The world did not shatter. It simply rearranged. Her father had not been cruel. He had been protecting something he believed he couldn't afford to lose. And in doing so, he had broken something in someone who had already been carrying too much. Caleb finally spoke, his voice low. He didn't ask. He didn't threaten. He just looked at me. A breath. No. And that was enough. Lena could see it, the moment, without needing to be there. A quiet room. A grieving man. A pilot who had already stopped believing he deserved to stay. Evan's expression shifted. Something like old resentment softening. Just slightly. "I didn't agree with him," Evan said, "but I didn't stop him either." Lena looked at him. "Why are you telling me now?" Evan's answer was simple. "You should know who you're choosing." The words landed between all three of them. Not a threat, not a warning, a truth. A choice. Lena drew in a slow breath. Her voice didn't break. "I don't blame him," she said. Evan stared at her, surprised. "I don't know what I would have done," she continued. "I've never had to make a decision where every option hurts." She looked at Caleb then. "But he did. Both of you did." Caleb's eyes lifted to hers. No guard this time. Just something quiet and bare. Evan stepped back, expression unreadable. "This isn't my story anymore," he said. He walked away, leaving the two of them standing alone in the long, still corridor, surrounded by framed history and unfinished grief. Lena exhaled slowly. Then she reached for the railing beside her, grounding herself. Not dramatic, not emotional collapse, just steadiness. She thought she knew the world she lived in, the narrator breathed softly in the mind's ear of the viewer. And now, she knew better. Caleb didn't try to speak. He didn't offer comfort. He didn't move toward her or away. He was simply there, present, real, for the first time, not disappearing. Lena turned to him. "I don't want you to disappear again," she said. Caleb's voice was almost a whisper. "I don't know how to stay." The truth sat between them like a held breath, not resolved, not broken, just waiting. They walked outside into the night again, leaving the museum's gleaming glass walls behind them. The sky was clear, the air warm, and the harbor lights shimmered across the water like scattered coins. The world looked exactly the same as it had an hour ago, but nothing felt the same. Caleb leaned against the railing by the pier, hands resting loosely on the metal. He kept his eyes on the water, as if the steady rhythm of the tide was the only thing that could hold him steady. Lena stood beside him, not close, not far, just there. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Lena drew in a breath. "Everything in my life has always been chosen for me," she said. "Every relationship, every expectation, every room I'm allowed to belong in." Her voice didn't waver. "But this, I'm choosing." Caleb didn't move. "That choice has a cost," he said. Lena nodded. "All real things do." He turned his head then, just slightly, just enough to meet her eyes. There was no distance there anymore. No masks, no noise, just two people standing in the space between what was expected and what was true. "I don't know how to be part of your world," he said quietly. Lena shook her head gently. "I don't want you to be." Caleb looked at her, searching her face for pretense, for performance, for the polished surface she'd worn so easily before. But there was none. She wasn't asking him to become something new. She was asking him to stay as he was, and that, somehow, was the more frightening thing. Caleb exhaled slowly, the breath leaving him like weight being set down. "I spent a long time trying to disappear," he said, "trying to live small, quiet, unseen. It felt safer." Lena's voice softened. "You don't have to stay small anymore." A quiet passed between them, not empty, full of something unnamed. Caleb looked at the horizon for a long moment. Then, very simply, "I don't want to run this time." The words were soft, but they carried the force of a decision. Lena's breath left her in a slow, steady exhale, not triumphant, relieved. She stepped beside him, not touching, just near enough that the air warmed between them. The night moved around them gently, waves, wind, distant city hum. For the first time, neither of them was performing. They were just here. And the choice had already been made, together. The next night, the heliport was quiet again, the rooftop washed in soft moonlight. The city moved far below, cars like sparks, windows like constellations. The air was warm, drifting gently across the landing pad. Lena stood where she had stood that first night. Same railing, same skyline, different heart. She didn't know whether he would come. She only knew she had chosen. The elevator doors opened. Caleb stepped out. He wasn't dressed for work, no uniform, no gloves, no tools. Just a fitted dark jacket, sleeves pushed to his forearms. The kind of simplicity that made him look like someone who had never needed to prove anything to anyone. He walked toward the helicopter, not with hesitation, not with urgency, just certainty. Lena followed. The helicopter door was open, cabin lights glowing softly from within. The blades were still, quiet, waiting. Caleb rested one hand on the frame and looked at her. There was no challenge in his eyes now, no distance, no walls. Just an invitation. "This isn't a bet this time," he said. His voice was low, steady. "No jokes, no dares, no audience." Lena took one step closer. "I know." He held out his hand, not to pull her, not to persuade her, to stand beside him. Lena reached out and placed her hand in his. Not dramatic, not trembling, certain. They stepped into the helicopter together. Caleb sat in the pilot's seat, Lena in the co-pilot's. The cabin lights glowed softly around them. The city stretched far and bright below. Caleb looked straight ahead, then turned to her, his voice quiet. "If we fly tonight, we fly together." The ignition clicked. The instrument panel lit. The rotor began to turn, slow at first, then faster, stirring the air around them, lifting wind across the rooftop, ruffling Lena's hair, carrying salt and night and memory. The city lights blurred into motion. The ground fell away. The helicopter rose into the sky, side by side, not a joke, not a performance, not an accident, a beginning. The blades thundered softly, the ocean opened beneath them, the night widened around them.